Ron, you got to mute.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another fabulous Get Connected forum. I am so proud to partner with the Alliance for Business Leadership to present part 3 of this very timely discussion on allyship featuring Black men. And we have lovingly referred to this as Black men who can dunk, thanks to my good friend, Mr. Ron Bell, who said, well, you did white men who can jump. How about Black men who can dunk? And I have had some friends who said to me, what? Tell me why you called it Black men who can dunk. Well, the reality is if you are a sports fan, you know that slam dunks are very important. And these are Black men who have dunked for the community, whether it is around economic impact, whether it is around social impact. And they are people who have done a phenomenal job in everything that they have done. And I am so pleased to have them on this forum today, particularly at this very inflection time and point in America's history. And so I couldn't think of anybody better to moderate this panel than Michael Curry. For those of you who may have seen Michael about a couple months ago this summer on the GBH All Black Men Forum, he was phenomenal. And I told him he needs his own show, but he tells me he's going to be the CEO. He doesn't have time, but I'm going to push him. Anyway, he is going to moderate this. And we are so blessed to have in the house the head of and founder of The Base. It's all about the base, is Robert Lewis Jr. And for those of us who know Robert, Robert has been at the forefront of making an impact in not just the Black community, but in Boston's community. And he continues to do so. And something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is our young people that he is making an impact on. The next brother who can dunk is Thaddeus Miles. And for those of you who know and love Thad and Black Joy, I so look forward to reading him every morning when I wake up, either on Facebook or on LinkedIn, and getting it's like my cup of coffee to start my day. And he has really been about the health of our community, our mental health, our spiritual health, and our physical health, and everything in between. And again, with young people, old people, men, women, he has really been at the epicenter of changing the way we as people of color view ourselves and see ourselves. The next person is Glenn Lloyd. Glenn Lloyd has been an entrepreneur and both social and otherwise for over 2 decades, and has been committed to organic food and making sure that we have what is referred to these days as clean food in our community. He has done everything from City Fresh, his company that he started with his brother, to now he heads up Boston's most dynamic and premier social impact financial foundation to help close the wealth gap. And that is the Foundation for Business and Economic Equity at Eastern Bank. And I am just so proud to call him my friend. And of course, my younger brother from another mother, Herby Duverne. Herby, like myself, is an immigrant who came here, who had they bitten by the entrepreneurial app, you know, and like me, in a lot of ways, even though we are both entrepreneurs, at our heart and soul, we are all about social impact. He is the head of a business that started off as a small business and now is growing leaps and bounds in the cybersecurity and physical security field. And he hasn't stopped there. He has challenged all of us this summer with the Greenwood Challenge of giving $100,000 to BECMA to invest in our community and in entrepreneurs, Black and brown entrepreneurs. And he continues to do so by getting us into development through Rise Together, which is helping young people understand how to get into the construction and the development game. And so I am so grateful to you, Herby. And we couldn't do this without having the millennial involved, you know, the next generation down from all of us. And who best to do this than Amari Paris Jeffries, who heads up the King Boston, which I think is a great sort of social, again, impact here in the city, carrying the spirit of Martin Luther King. And I can think of nobody better to head that organization than Amari. He has been doing phenomenal work in our community, galvanizing young people. And it just warms my heart to see somebody at this age who is moving the dial and just making an impact. Our next person is the Reverend Ron Bell. And for those of us who know Ron, Ron is just, again, another phenomenal brother who dunks. And he actually is the founder of Dunk the Vote and has been working at this since the 90s and continued to make an impact in our community. He has started another venture now, Boston Black News, which is both on television and radio, and just making sure that we have a voice and we have a platform to share our voices. And of course, our moderator, Michael Curry, the Michael Curry, who, for those of us who love and know Michael, he has, at his heart, is also a social entrepreneur. He is an attorney and has been in the healthcare field for over 2 decades, and also in the public affairs arena, soon to be the new CEO, first Black CEO of the League of Community Health Centers, the oldest organization of its type in the entire country. And this is a big move. And he also is on the board, former president of the Boston chapter of the NAACP, and now is on the national board and was very instrumental, along with the current president of the NAACP, Tanisha Sullivan, in making Boston the venue and the place that we were pre-COVID, we were supposed to be the host of the NAACP convention, but they're going to come back. They'll be back in 2023, I believe, Mike. And so gives me great pleasure to turn this over to Mike and to hear from these brothers about the state of Black, not just Black Boston, but Black America, and what whites and other allies can do to support these brothers and our community if they truly are allies and accomplices to racial equity and inclusion. Thank you, Mike, and thank you to all my brothers.
Thank you, Colette. It is, as always, an honor and a privilege to be here hosting this conversation. For any of us in Boston and around the country, we know that Colette Phillips convenes us to have these important conversations at a time when we need the conversation. I've been honored and privileged many years, my 16 years at Blue Cross Blue Shield. Bill Van Fazen, the former president and CEO of Blue Cross, and Peter Mead used to always say, you got to go talk to Colette. Because folks knew that there was a compass in this city around social justice work, around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that Colette was that compass for the city of Boston, and I would say greater Boston. That same thing was echoed when I joined the Massachusetts League of Community Health Centers. Colette, Jim Hunt would say to me, well, have you talked to Colette? And I would say, of course I've talked to Colette. So Colette, thank you for the many years that you've moved us and moved this conversation. I am honored and privileged to lead this group of brothers who I know well. I'm a fan of every one of them. I know there's a little bit of anxiety about it, the title of it being Black Men Who Can Dunk, but we can dunk too. But I think one of the things we're gonna have in this conversation, well, at least most of you can dunk. I think at some point, maybe not most of you, a few of you could dunk. I can only speak for one who I actually saw dunk. I can't really speak for the rest. But the metaphor is really about what you do in our communities, what you do to move policy, what you do to uplift our communities. And that's what this conversation is about. So it's not about actually dunking. But I want to use and stay with that metaphor a little bit to talk about the 1992 Dream Team. that collection of professional NBA players that were convened to win the Olympic gold in 1992. And as you know, Robert, it included the folks you and I grew up on watching NBA basketball, right? We had never seen all those players play together and to play not like an all-star game. They were playing with passion to win that gold medal. And I think of the group of you as that dream team. And I want to sort of lean in there. I know Colette has introduced all of you. I'll dig a little bit into your backgrounds during the course of this conversation, but I want to start with this. 2020, William Watkins, who I think all of us know at the Urban League, said at a forum that we were at, that it took a pandemic and being forced to stay at home to give us 2020 vision, which I thought was profound. That being forced to stay at home made us pay attention to how we provide technology remotely to our children, how we provide healthcare and having to move to telehealth, how we work remotely and have people engage, how we look at the issue of race and racial equity, racial justice, how we look at politics and who we vote for and how we vote. It forced us to vote early voting and vote by mail and to exercise the franchise of voting. So I want to start there and I want to go down the line because you all have a lot post the election that you're thinking about around this year and around what just transpired a few weeks ago when we elected a new president. Though some people are a little uncomfortable that we elected a new president, we do have a new president-elect, despite what some believe. So I want to give you an opportunity, if you can, just quickly, tell us about what you're thinking about this year, what you learned, and what you're feeling post the election. And I want to start with really the Bill Russell of this group. He wasn't on the dream team, but if he was around during that period, he would have been on the dream team. Robert Lewis Jr., the elder statesman and the sophisticated brother sitting there with that turtleneck and that suit jacket, looking real sharp. Let's start with you, Robert.
First and foremost, man, Michael Curry, love you, brother, man, and you know that. And I want to just share before I answer that. Mike Curry was somebody 16 years ago that I asked to meet with my son. And I wanted my son to meet Mike Curry, to turn around as my son was thinking about college and thinking about his career. And I want to just thank you for that, Mike, when you met with my son and the young man he is today. But Mike has said this, to just be on this panel with this group of brothers is I'm honored, I'm humbled, and I'm inspired. Mike, a lot has really hit me on this. I got COVID. I was hit with COVID. I was actually on a ventilator for 12 days fighting for my life. And so when I actually, and I'm still recovering emotionally, physically, and psychologically. So much was going on from this pandemic, what was happening around, the inequities, what was happening around race, what was happening around police, and the election. A few things that really was in my heart and on my mind was, as I was recovering, I had folks reaching out and checking in on me. And we have thousands of young brothers that didn't have anybody checking in on them. And who did they turn to? Who could they go to? Where could they get mails? Thaddeus Miles, I'm going to point this brother out, made a significant gift to the base for us to be able to give food and give food gifts and things of that nature to our folks. So much that's hit me, Mike, is that it is the power of the Black vote, the power of Black leadership, the power of entrepreneurship, and reminding ourselves on and on and on that we are a great people. What the election has shown is when we organize and galvanize, and lead, like Jim Clyburn, like, so many others that have led change can occur. And when I look at this group of panelists right now, I know Boston and our region are going to be in a better place because of leaders like us. And during this pandemic, it took that for me to think, to process, and to go through this. And I'm just looking forward to the rest of it. But I know as it hit me personally, it has forced me to reevaluate my own life and things that I think about and care about.
Thank you, Robert. I will say for all of us that were worried about you during that period of time when you had COVID-19 and you were hospitalized, I know I jumped on a phone call where many, many people from across the globe, there were even people overseas on a prayer line for you, praying for you And I just want to say I'm so thankful that you're back with us, that you're healthy, and then you're here to be part of this conversation. I want to go to Thaddeus Miles next. Thaddeus, so funny. I was digging into some crates, looking at some articles about you, going back to Color Magazine and a Boston. Adrian Walker wrote a great article on you about the unsung hero, that people don't know all the great things you do for young people. And I can tell you, just as a person who's been a fan of yours, watching you from the corner, that if there's a conversation around something positive and uplifting Black people in this city, Thaddeus is at the table. If there's an issue about racial justice, Thaddeus is at the table. So Thaddeus, we want to hear what you're thinking about 2020, this tsunami of events that happened and transpired. You were in the middle of many of the conversations, from health to education, economic justice. How are you feeling post the election?
Well, I think one of the things, man, first I want to thank Colette, and I want to thank you, brothers, man, because, being on this call with all you dunkers or wannabe dunkers, it's bringing me black joy. After this, I'm going to post an article about me dunking in high school and winning one of the games, just so folks know and understand. But, I also think about the challenges that we're going through. I think about how we've got to prepare for that next step, for that kickback, right? We're in when I think about President Obama and his 8 years and everything that went through, and then we got 45, right? In the flashback, I think about the 71 million people that voted for 45 and what that looks like. I think about the aspect that more Black men are starting to vote for a different way. But I also think about COVID and how it sort of affected me, from the start, because there was this rumor that Black people didn't get COVID, right? And then I heard about Robert and sort of what you said is like, I'm on that call with you and 300, 400 other brothers and sisters of all denominations, whatever you can think about, an international peace that we're praying and praying hard to uplift Robert, and that God brings him back to live his purpose, and that he can still be here changing lives as the way that he does each and every day. And I started to think about, like, where is my intersect in all of these particular components? Where do I start to think about, when I think about Hood Fit, I think about our spiritual health, our financial health, our physical health, and our mental health. And so one of the biggest challenges that I'm looking at today is, how do we cope mentally? Suicide's going up, depression is leveling out and growing up. Young men and women are disappearing. There's struggles around the eviction moratorium ending in a few weeks, right around the same time as the holidays, and why they extended it. That doesn't mean it's being paid back. The issues that we have up here, food insecurities, the issues around just the challenges of being a Black man and waking up every day and worried about your Black child walking out that door. So there's a lot of challenges that I'm focused on and trying to figure out where do I intersect, where do I lift up, where do I lead, where do I follow, where do I just stand tall. But I think the other thing that I'm really focused on is, how do I change the imagery and the narrative of the Black man and who we are, and what our gift is to this world. And it goes back to Robert when we started to think about our greatness. And I want to make sure that the Black man's greatness during 2021 shines and levels up. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Thaddeus. And Thaddeus, I didn't give you a title for this conversation, but you're the Charles Barkley of the group. In case you didn't know.
All right, I'll take that.
Okay. I want to go to Glenn next. Glenn, you're the Magic Johnson of the group. And you're not 6'9".
I will take that.
But Glenn, I have a personal connection to you in that after the 1995 Million Man March, I and others organized around the Million Man March and what we could do when we came back to Boston. And you and I connected with a whole bunch of amazing souls and spirits who came back to organize. And you and I became friends. And you had your vision around the city of Boston, around eating healthy foods. You and your brother were leading City Fresh Foods at the time. Now you're the executive director for the Foundation for Business Equity and co-founder of, as I said, of City Fresh Foods. You've always had a passion for us and our people and our communities. You could see it. It's so funny. You probably don't notice. I have a list of who I call angels. And there are people who've been put on this earth and they're just destined to do good things for us. And you're, believe it or not, I've been calling you that since 95, 96. And you always had a good heart about our community and our people. I want to talk to you, Glenn, because you're in the mix of this around economic development. Everyone's talking about how do we build economic wealth. Everyone's talking about there's an awakening around Tulsa, Oklahoma and Black Wall Street. I was on with Shagun the other day and Congressman Presley. We're talking about 40 acres and a mule. People finally understand that we've always missed those opportunities, or the opportunities missed us, better said. That basically we were screened off of all these economic development investments in people and in communities. But you're at the center of trying to do something about that. What are you thinking post-COVID, post George Floyd, post the election?
Thanks, Mike. Let me start by saying, man, Black men can cry, man. You just almost got me emotional with that introduction, man. So yeah, and thanks, Colette, for bringing this beautiful group of Blackness together. There's so many stories and there's a lot of hurt, right? 2020 was a tough year. And you know, one quick story is, I mean, we work with some of the more prominent Black and Latino businesses, right, in our area, and to see, I can tell you the stories of the folks that turned the corner into, you know, Q1 2020, like amazing things happening, doing all the things correct, and then completely out of their control, shut down. And so that actually gets me emotional saying it again, because to build a business, so many things can go wrong, right? And to have that really taken from you in some ways, out of your control, and really with no sight in mind of how you build that back up. So we've had that, right, in 2020 around the small business community, especially our folks in the restaurant side, and a lot of folks are still hanging on, but we've seen that type of disruption in sectors that we've never seen before. I mean, I've never seen in my, you know, decades of experience in small business. And then you have the overlay where I think everyone in this, you know, kind of Zoom would know is the strength that where you come, how strong you were prior has a lot to do with how you weather it, right? And so in the business world, that means how strong your balance sheet is, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, historically, you know, we're not on a level playing field in a lot of ways economically, and so that also means that we suffer greater, right? You know, from an economic point of view. But I'll say this quickly, and I'm sure we'll get into the future stuff. Being the you know, ultimate optimist, I think the future where there's going to be opportunity, right? For entrepreneur and innovation, we're about to go into maybe a roaring 20s or something. There's going to be growth, and there's going to be opportunity happening over the next 10 years. I think we need to get that mindset, and I think we also need to get the mindset that, you know, we've inherited a lot of these problems. And we have to rethink and reimagine how we can be together, right? Everything from economics, you know, we're a collective people, to how we work with the environment and, you know, our habitat. So I think I'm hopeful that this is going to be, you know, a shock to the system, that we're really thinking about doing things differently moving forward.
Thank you, Glenn. Growth and opportunity. So it's interesting, and we'll dig a little deeper into what the impact of this pandemic has been on Black business. We know we've lost a significant number of Black businesses across the country and here in the Commonwealth. But I'd love to dig a little deeper with you in a second around what that growth and opportunity looks like and how we can be prepared for that. Herby, when I think of you, I have a memory of Ken Guscott. And Ken Guscott was a friend and mentor of mine. When I told him I wanted to run for NAACP president, he said, set up your office right in my office, run your campaign from here. And I sat in that office with him and Cecil and talked for months around Black businesses, historically, the challenges facing Black businesses. And I had a chance to read the BBJ article that you were featured in, dealing with the challenges of getting contracts. Despite all your credentials, despite all the training and academic preparation that you had to go outside of Massachusetts to get business. And there's a quote, and I wanted to share that from the article. It said, despite all my credentials, it was hard to get contracts and promote my business, even though I know a lot of people. Nobody really will tell you directly why they couldn't hire you. People love you. People think you're a good business person, but when it comes to contracts and action, it's limited. So you have a unique perspective, Herby. You've been watching what's going on across the country, but you've been narrowly focused on business development, how to grow your business, how to invest has been said in the good work that's being done by others on this call. What are you feeling? What are you thinking in this moment?
Thank you, Michael. And first and foremost, I need to thank Collette for all, her nice words about me, and also her words of wisdom, and more importantly, all of you on this panel. Many years ago, you are people that I look up to. I'm always thinking about people like Michael Curry, Robert Lewis, or Thaddeus, whom I met a number of times, and Glenn, and Ron, whom I know before during the Deval Patrick era. So thank you guys for being here. I'm really honored, and this is a great opportunity. I think, it's interesting you saying that, Michael, because, one of the things that I keep feeling, and part of it is, as many of you know, I was born in Haiti, and some of you might know, Haiti was the first Black country that took its freedom from France. I mean, those were the powerful country back then. And then the more that I grow in this in the United States, the more that I become successful, the more that I open doors, the more I get to the table, the more I get angry about the limitation of the opportunity for many of us, because we are so good, because when the opportunity come to us, we thrive. I mean, you name them, whether it's tennis, basketball, baseball, businesses, I mean, colleges, every time they provide us the opportunity, we thrive. And I get angry because I feel that there are concerted effort to limit opportunity for people like us, and then to bring us down as Black people, that we're not worthy. And we know we are, because we always get through no matter what. And those are the things that stuck to my mind, because with all the COVID-19 happened, the unrest with Black Lives Matter, that sort of you get all of us upset, and especially if you have young Black kids, you feel that why this country over and over again limit the opportunity for us. But we always, as Black people, we give this country everything we have, from slavery, from all the work we've done. We built this country. We've done everything possible. Even the last election, we are the one that show up, especially Black women. We're the one that show up and say, no, enough is enough. We have to take a step and do something different, even when other group didn't do it. So that's kind of my feeling. So part of me is hopeful, but part of me, I get angry every so often, thinking that, why we gotta keep getting, short of the stick. So that's kind of what's going through my mind. And my hope is, this new year, this new election, we got to do more. We got to keep working harder. We got to double our effort to make sure that we do not get a limited opportunity that we've been getting.
Thank you, Herby. I'm going to ask just folks to mute their line. I want to remind, as Collette wanted folks that are listening in today to remember to use the hashtag GKBrothersDunk. Again, it's hashtag GK, get connected, brothers dunk, GK brothers dunk, or hashtag I am connected with a K. So we want you to, as you hear things, you engage in this conversation with us. We want you to go online and share what you're hearing online. I want to go to, and I got to recognize Herby. Herby, I'm giving you David Robinson because you're holding down the paint. So you're the David Robinson of the group. I'm going to you next, Amari, and I want to call you the Scottie Pippen, but I think you're more the LeBron James. You're the next generation of leaders in this conversation. You, Shagun, Sheena, there's a whole group of you who I think are phenomenal young leaders that are in the tradition of the Collette Phillips and the so many others I could name, civil rights, business, academia. So I want to go to you next, Amari. You are most recently a leader as the executive director of King Boston, but many of us who know that, you go to you when you really want to have a conversation around what's going on in our communities. You're in the UMass Boston system. You're a leader in that system, one of the few leaders of color You have the ear of the president of the UMass system, and you've had me even sit down with you and Marty Meehan to have conversation about race and justice and equity and inclusion. You convene Black academia, right? The Black doctoral students and folks with their doctorates to talk about how they can lean in more to be available for research in the areas that we need them, because we can't rely on others to give us the data to do our advocacy, right? So I want to go to you, Amari. There's so much I know you and I have chatted about when we've been over at META, chopping it up with Doug around what's going on in our community. Give us your thoughts on what you're feeling, hearing, and thinking in this moment.
Thank you, Mike. I also want to thank Colette for convening all of us today, and it feels like an honor to be on this Zoom with my big brothers and mentors, and so all of you have a special place with me, and so I so appreciate really having an opportunity to grow up with many of you, and sometimes getting poked around and sometimes getting dunked on. And oftentimes handing that assist. So I'll take Scotty. Glenn got that face. I'll take Scotty for the dream team. I thought you were going to say Christian Laettner because as the young person, but he ain't never made All-Stars after the thing. And so I was like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't say Christian Laettner as the new Jack. Yeah, I would think of that. But Mike, in this moment, I think that there's been a lot of great ideas and sentiment that I also agree with. But I think one of the things I was thinking about recently, particularly with the advent of Zoom, prior to COVID-19 emerging, I think technology had a way of getting us distracted from each other and not being able to connect in the ways that we are so longing for these days. And so even with the advent of Zoom technology and our ability to get together in forums like these, we still would much rather be with each other at META, kick it with each other at a spot, be outside, walking, talking, being together. And so, COVID has reminded me of our collective power and the importance of our connectivity as a people, as Black folks. It is fundamentally, and I think Thaddeus has always been talking about that, it is fundamentally our special sauce. And we are connected like magnets to each other in a way that when we fully realize and mobilize our power of connectivity, we will be unstoppable. I saw a tweet this morning that said, instead of, I wonder what it would look like when Black people, instead of asking for civil rights, ask for our appropriate pieces and ask for revenge, right? So we're not a people that thrives for revenge, but we are a people that has so much more power. And so COVID has reminded me of our power. And I think it has given other groups an opportunity to see our power too. And so I'm happy to be here and have a lot more ideas to share. And also thinking about Black women in this moment. I think this is a forum about Black men who could dunk in our collective power, but I think it has also been a moment for us to acknowledge the ways in which we have participated in whiteness as Black men, and occasionally not lifting up Black women and not lifting up Indigenous folks. And so I think that's been another important piece that emerging from COVID that is front and center for us, that our priority is to raise up Black women and Black children, and also hold up Indigenous people as well.
Thank you, Amari. The first question when I come back is going to touch on what you talked about, Amari, which is Black men. So I'm going to come back to that and come back to you. Ron Bell, I mean, I think I've seen, probably you the only cat on here that I've actually seen play ball. So I'm giving you Michael Jordan because you was the point guard.
All right.
For those of us who've seen you, Robert's looking like, what? Are you giving him?
What? Robin? No, you didn't, Robin.
But I will say, Ron, being a person who came back here, born and raised in Roxbury, Linden Street housing projects, and returning back to Boston as a young activist, I think about you. Did I lose you, Ron? Are you still there? I think Ron. Oh, okay, because you froze for a second. I think about you because when I came home and was involved in the NAACP, everybody kept saying, yo, you know, Ron Bell needs
a lot of stuff going on over here.
Ron Bell needs to be a part of the work that you're doing to get out the vote. And I ended up organizing early on a campaign to get out the vote. And you and Malia Lazu, the young Malia Lazu, stepped up and organized, which I think was one of the best get out the vote campaigns in the city's history, but also one of the best in the nation as I've been involved on a national level. And Ron, a lot of that was your leadership because you were doing this work decades ago. So can you talk a little bit about from your Dunk the Vote years, from your work now in the media, what are you feeling now after November 3rd when Black folks showed up in Philly, in Atlanta, in Detroit, in Las Vegas? And right now they're sort of being demonized as, you know, these crooked cities that gave the election to the Democrats, when in fact what it is code for those Black folks showed up in those cities. And I just want you to talk about what you're thinking about this year in this election.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Michael, for the introduction. One of the first things that I thought about was the fact that we worked together 20 years ago on Knock Across Boston when we brought all the different organizations together. Can y'all hear me?
Your phone is going, I mean, your internet connection is going in and out, Ron. So there's a delay.
Michael, he's so fast as Jordan, he's making us freeze. That's what it is. He's taking the Zoom analogy a little too far.
Can you hear me? So should I keep talking?
Ron, if you're not back in a second, what I'm going to do is come. See if you can switch connections, Ron. Even if you, no, you're still cutting out. If you can switch to a phone and then just keep the video up, then we'll do the phone and have you make your comments that way. But I'm going to come back to Ron. So Ron, I'm going to come back to you.
Okay. Yeah.
Michael, you're muted now.
So
Michael, you're muted.
We know with this last election.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, you're better. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, I'm gonna move a little bit. I'm having a little technical difficulties over there, but you know what, Michael? First of all, I want to thank you. I'm gonna move a little bit. I'm having a little technical difficulties over there, but you know what, Michael? First of all, I want to thank you. We were able to increase voter participation by 20%.
Ron, you need to mute that other line. Mute that other line because it's coming through.
Turn it off. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but
You
there's an
need
echo.
to mute
Okay.
your phone, Ron.
Hey, I think we have to take that Michael Jordan title back, man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This was a rare occasion for Michael Jordan when he didn't have a good connection.
Come on, Ron.
Can you hear me?
This is the baseball Michael Jordan.
That is, I was going to say the Washington D.C. Michael Jordan.
So Ron, let me come back to you just when you get settled because I want to get you in, but so we don't hold it up. I want to go to the most recent election and how Black men did or did not show up. So you've all seen the news, right? The Lil Wayne supporting Donald Trump, the Ice Cube wanting to cut a deal and do the economic development plan with Donald Trump and him saying, hey, he's the one who called me back. And there are others that I don't need to name. And then, the polls show, and whether they're accurate or not, that some 20% or so of Black men supported Donald Trump. And what does that mean? I want to unpack that a little bit of why Black men, a significant portion of Black men supported Donald Trump. Now, we can talk about the 72 million that voted for him, but within that is Black men. What's interesting about that is that Barack Obama had over 90% of Black men support him in 2008. He had less in 2012 when he ran again. I want to say it was high 80%, 87%. Hillary Clinton only had a low 80% support her when she ran in 2016. What is it about America? What is it about our political system that is not drawing Black men, Black voters to be as consistent voting and as committed to a party as Black women. And I want to start with you, Omari, and then go to Robert. Your thoughts around this election year, Black women, Black men.
Mike, I've been reading that article. There was another article on very smart brothers that refer to cisgender Black men as the white people of Black people. And so I was struck by that. It said cisgender Black men are the white people of Black people. And I was like, wow, like what does that mean? I think the reality is in this moment in time, and you and I have talked about it, a lot. All of us have these canons that we've been socialized to, right? Including Black folks, including Black men, right? And there's these things about our characteristics of being cisgender, of being masculine, about engaging in patriarchy, that socialized with racism. It is not surprising that the way that we have been socialized into racism, that it hasn't shaped our behavior a lot sooner. And I think, as white people have been socialized into racism, so has Black people, and particularly Black men. And I think the work that we're asking white folks to do around interrogating how their canons of racism, I think Black men, us, I think we have work to do ourselves, and that's inside work. That's not the work that we publicize, and many times we are victims of racism, but we've also been socialized into these racist canons that we participate in. And so with that in mind, it's not surprising to me that socialized racism has us voting and behaving in ways that are contrary to what is beneficial to us. Like low-income white people also are socialized and behave in ways economically with their vote that are not beneficial to them as well. And so, there is, something special about Black women that, they have always been the leaders in our communities and our families, and they have had to have moments in which they've had to interrogate the ways that racism has been enacted on them, and the ways that they've been socialized by it, in a way that I think Black men haven't done yet. And I hope through this conversation and conversations before and many after, that we can continue doing the work. And I think Thaddeus has been, one of my role models and examples around how, as Black men, we have to come together in community to interrogate those canons for us. And I think that's one of the things coming out of COVID, because it wasn't illuminated in this way. And I think we've gotten to hide amongst ourselves in the way that we've been socialized and the way we think about who we are as men.
Thank you, Omari. Robert, we all got work to do. And I think Omari hammers that home, and his brothers, we got work to do. I think about that phrase that I repeat, but it comes from, I heard it first from Jim Hunt at the president and CEO of the Mass League, that I'll be taking that role. He used to say to me early on, he used to say, if you're not at the table, you're on the table or you're on the menu. And voting is being part of being at the table. And as Black people, and particularly as Black men, we've been on the table a lot. The crime bill, the Clinton crime bill, was us being at the table. That's why we got mass incarceration. You, Robert, done something significant, because you've been at a lot of tables, and you've been able to get a seat at the table and have a voice at the table despite party, Republican, Democrat, no matter what people's ideology is, they've invited you into the conversation. What are you thinking about the Black male vote and what it takes? And you're dealing with our young people. What are you hearing from young people?
Mike, there's so much. I mean, there's so much. And to be real, some of it was frustrating as hell when I'm thinking about who are some of the brothers, but who we in some place have positioned as leaders in the music industry, or leaders in a way to be the spokespeople for us. We put them there, and then when it didn't represent what we wanted, there's this issue, right? And I always say to our young brothers, like, all of those posters you put on the wall and everything, they're never gonna know you. the brothers on this Zoom are the brothers that are going to know you. I think a few things that were frustrating to me, and some of it was, what is happening politically, right? Is this around Democrats and Republicans? Is this around Trump? And all of a sudden, is Trump going to protect my assets, right? Because I've done well and I've done financially well. I start to wonder too, even these brothers that are, rap artists or dressing and playing the part, I worry about their disconnect to what's really happening, to what really happening back in the neighborhoods, what's really happening to our young folks. What are the real issues around education and things that we're talking about food insecurities and stuff, because I didn't really hear them talking about any of that. I heard them talking about why Trump, right? But not why not our community. So I don't know the answers, but the thing that I have talked to our young folks and our young staff about is, one of the first things was that the number of our young folks that felt like they had a vote, that this was a critical time. So that was the first step, that like, I got to vote, my vote counts and it matters. And so much of this is around, not to be funny, the Julia Mejia winning by one vote, right? That's in the mind of a lot of folks that my vote really does matter. But I also think it's what Amari said. We need to continue to keep bringing ourselves together collectively, post this Zoom call, and really start to talk with our young folks, but also bringing brothers together in our community. Mike, I want to share one thing that I did probably about 10 months ago. It was Amari, it was Orlando, Ron Dorsey, and a bunch of brothers. We were all going out to meet. But I asked all these brothers to come to the base first to meet with all of our young brothers. And I had all of them talk about their careers, where their background and things of that nature. But I also needed our young brothers to know that they were a group of young Black men who are out there standing and representing them. And I guess the last thing I would say with this, and please, I'm just being frank. I'm just being frank and honest. I didn't give a damn about those that went that way. What I did do is I give a damn about folks that are on the ground with me, who are caring about the issues we care, and how do we keep organizing our young brothers and sisters to stand for the issues that matter in our backyard. And for those that don't, I ain't got time. For those that do and want to, I'm ready to rally with a group of brothers like this and keep moving forward. So I couldn't let that get me down, because it would depress me. But it is frustrating and angry because we got so much damn work to do.
Thank you, Robert. I'm going to switch over because I know we only have a few minutes, and I'm going to go to Thaddeus, Herby, and Glenn. But let me bring in Ron real quick. Ron, is your audio good? Michael Jordan, are you good? You're on mute. You're on mute, Ron. Ron, you're still on mute.
Ron?
I think he has some assistance there. Hold on.
Okay,
Yeah, there you go, Ron. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good.
You're muted again, Ron. I don't know what that is. Can't hear you. Give it a few more seconds, Ron. I'm going to go to you, Glenn, and then Thaddeus and Herby. I'm going to switch the question up a little bit. Is this a moment or a movement? What are you thinking in this moment with all this attention, all this DEI conversation? Herb, you're getting calls around investing in Black business. There's talking about economic investment funds. Glenn, you've been at this a long time and you've seen a lot of moments. Is this a moment or a movement?
That's a great question. I look at, we got to be willing to put the work in, right? And how do we take platforms that are working and double down and amplify them? I mean, it's a combination of things. Robbie, you said it's us getting together, understanding what we're all doing and supporting each other behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, around the scenes. It's understanding the game that's being played on us, over us. And I think that, look, I spent the last 5 years trying to take resources that typically don't come to our folks and move them to our folks. And that's, I want to be honest on this crowd, that's the belly of the beast. That's hard work. And we're all doing hard work, but now how do you institutionalize it and then build on it? And I think to your question, Mike, that right, we got to take the moment and keep it moving, right? In a steady and increased way. And I do think that there's, for me, as two quick things, there's two urgent issues at hand for our kids and next generations. For me, the top one is the climate, and the environment that we live in is under siege, and that impacts us all. And we have to think differently about how we use energy and all that stuff. And the other one is the equity issue, and we've seen that, right? And we all been living that like for decades. But we also got to deal with that too. And a big part of that too is ownership. We got to be owning things, owning our homes, owning equity, because that relates to power in this current society. While we're living in it, we gotta be powerful within it. And again, that again takes time, energy, and effort.
Excellent. Thank you, Glenn. Herbie, moment or movement?
I will say, for me, it is a moment within the movement. So I think it's both in a way, because I think, I always feel that, the issue of Black people in this country and many other countries, it's been going on for many, many years. And we cannot lose the fact that this is always going to be a movement, to get where we want to get. And I'm not sure that this generation or next generation are going to see it, but we have to see it as a movement that's keep going. And during that movement, there's going to be a lot of moment. And I think to us right now, that's the moment right now. And then, as Glenn mentioned, we need to seize that opportunity, right? Because when the GI Bill happened, right, we didn't seize the opportunity. So we got to seize opportunity when we see it. There's a lot of push right now to hire Black people. Put them in charge of diversity, hire Black people, bring them as a CEO of organization. Again, congratulations to Michael, to you. There's all those things going to be done everywhere. We got the brother, Turner from Massport, who's going to be in charge of, of an organization. So we've seen all this movement going on, all these moments going on. I think we need to take advantage of those, so we don't look back 20 years from now. We don't want to sit back and say, geez, man, why we did not take up the advantage of this opportunity. So I want to make sure that I take advantage of all the opportunity. And as Glenn's saying, we got to own stuff. We have to own things. We got to own opportunity. If we have a company that we're building, make sure our son, our daughters, make sure we pass it on to them. We got to have this mindset, right? We cannot have the mindset of, wow, I tell the way I kind of live, I say, you know what? I'm trying to do everything I'm doing. If I'm building well for 2 or 3 generations after me. Not just for me here. You know what? Yep, of course, I can have a great retirement. But again, then to me, that's a lost opportunity. Let's make sure that we have things that our great-grandson's going to say, wow, Granddaddy Herby left that for me. Granddaddy Herby left me that house. So we got to think that kind of way.
Excellent. I appreciate that, Herbie. And you made me think of something I want to lift up before I go to and Ron, I'm coming to you next. I want to go to Thaddeus, and I'm gonna give you some quality time, Ron, to catch up on your perspective. I want to lift up Kim Budd, Robert, who's been nominated to a leadership position on our Supreme Judicial Court. We can't forget that that's progress. That's what you're talking about, Herbie. And I want to recognize Justice Ireland and his leadership in our Supreme Judicial Court. I want to talk about the Latinx nominee who Governor Baker just nominated as well to join the court. This is the moments that add up to a movement. I want to talk about Rachel Rollins, DA Rollins, and the disruptive work that she's doing out of the DA's office. And when I say disruptive, Glenn, it's the stuff that you and I've talked about. How do you move the agenda in a disruptive way that people then catch up to it? So I want to talk about Commissioner Gross and his leadership, first Black commissioner in the city of Boston's Boston Police, and then Kevin Churchwell at Boston Children's Hospital, the CEO of Boston Children's Hospital, Lee Pelton, many others. Thaddeus, what are you thinking about moment or movement?
So I think it's about 26 different moments, right? So, because I think of this in some ways, I wish it was more like that egg cart that we get. It's got a bunch of different eggs in it, but it's all still in one cart moving together, no matter what you do around it. But what I'm finding is that there's white folks that are operating. So for me, there's 4 different areas that we focus on to get us to action. There's pity, there's sympathy, there's empathy, and then there's compassion, right? Compassion makes us want to act on it. Pity is a different thing, but there's a lot of white folks that's out there that's actually moving through pity and not through compassion. They're skipping a step, right? Because you just can't go from pity to compassion. You still need to go to sympathy, and you need to go to empathy to be able to understand it and to get the knowledge of it and to do that research and to really to do your own shadow work as a white person and what that looks like. And then there's us as black folks that are operating and seeing things at the same time from one of those angles of pity, sympathy, empathy, or compassion. And we're not really having enough compassion for ourselves to figure out how do we sort of move through these struggles and be able to not make it that this is our only moment, right? Because for me, it's that we got to build it into a movement. Because sometimes for me, I'm feeling that fear, that a lot of us are operating from fear that this is our last chance. We ain't gonna be able to do anything after this because all the white folks can gather and they can snatch up everything and move forward, right? And then we're gonna be back to where we started. I'm trying to keep it real because you said I'm Charles Barkley, right? So
You can always rely on that with Charles.
You know what I mean? And so for me, that's the challenge, right? Is how do we come together, right? How do we move? But the last thing I'll say, because I definitely want to give Brother Ron some more time, is how do we, and me and Robert were talking about this earlier, how do we become the wind beneath the wings of our young people so that they can soar to power, right? To be able to speak their truth to power, to be able to continue that movement that we're building. If we don't do that, then this is not a movement, right? This is going to be 20 years from now. Young people are going to be saying those old folks didn't do anything, right? And we're going to have another cycle and another cycle. So for me, it's a bunch of different moments that if we can collectively start to build through that seed of compassion for each other, and I'm talking about us as black folks. I'm leaving the white folks over there for a while. Us as black folks to be able to build a seed of compassion for each other and move this forward into a movement that's sustainable. Not something that's lasting because Thaddeus, Michael, Robert, Glenn, Herby, Amari, and Rhonda there, but something that's can be driven by my grandkids, right? So when I think about Ezra and my grandkid, I'm thinking the same thing Herbie's saying. Generational wealth is one thing, but generational compassion for others and to be able to drive and sustain and continue that movement and to be able to fill that next generation with a seed of hope and work ethic is a different thing. So thank you.
Mike, can I just jump in just right behind that with a very specific example? And I want to call out my brother Herby on the line. When Herby put that challenge out, and now BECMA has close to $1 million raised, that's what I'm talking about in terms of platform. And guess who is the next generation? What Shogun is doing over there in that team, that's what I'm talking about, that has generational activity based on what you just said, Thaddeus. I just want to put that in there.
So I want to throw out some more hashtags before I go to Ron. So you left us some gems, Thaddeus, and I want to say hashtag skipping a step, because I think that's powerful. And I see some things in the chat, people that resonated with people. And then I think, Robert, what you do, what Amari does, what all of you do, but I think Robert probably is the person I think of most dealing with our young people, that next gen, hashtag next gen. That's a fourth quarter work. Right? Anybody can respond to a police bill in the state legislature, right? Anybody can show up at a school committee hearing, but are you preparing that generation that needs to be around 10 years from now to continue this fight? And I think you and some others are leading that charge, Robert. So thank you for that fourth quarter work, hashtag fourth quarter work. I want to go to you, Ron. We're going to go to you and then we're going to go to some questions because a lot of people want to jump in this conversation. I want to acknowledge Daryl Settles, who reminded us, and Daryl, forgive me, I've been talking about monoclonal antibodies, Mari, for the last 4 days and COVID-19. So he reminded us that Kim Budd was confirmed. So we have something to celebrate with our sister Kim. And I know my friend Wayne is very proud of his daughter right now, as we all are. So let's go to you, Ron. Tell us what you're thinking about this moment.
Yeah, well, basically, I just wanted to say I feel relieved that I'm dealing with this technology driving me crazy, but at the same time, I feel relieved that this election is almost over. And now the real work begins. As you know, I started Dunk the Vote in '92 in response to the Stewart case. And when I think about George Floyd, that brings me back to that moment when Black men were being savagely violated, their civil rights, and you're being strip searched right in front of the center. So I think about that was 31 years ago. Here we are today dealing with the same issues. I also think about in the year 2000, Michael, you and I and a number of other groups, you was with the NAACP, we had the effort knock across Boston, and there was a plummeting of voting in Boston for 20 years. And we set a goal to increase voter participation by 5%. We increased it by 20%. But because of election 2000, Chaz Dimple's unreliable polls, that story wasn't really told. So I think that was one of the biggest achievements in our city, aside from, of course, the election of Deval Patrick, Obama, and so forth. But I think that we need to continue. And I've heard a number of things from the fellow panelists. Thank you guys for being a part of this. You guys have been doing an awesome job. I'm really proud of all you. I love you, brothers. Thank you, Colette. Definitely the communication extraordinaire. She has been really doing it. And I mean, I attended a GQ market event yesterday. Girlfriend got it going on. It's nothing like a Black woman. And I know we had mentioned the fact that Black women have been very instrumental in as far as our getting out the vote, and particularly in Georgia, where Stacey Abrams and others were able to turn it bluish. I know there was a conversation of why Black men are actually supporting Trump. Why? Maybe because they're being ignored by the Democratic Party. And it could be a number of other issues. One of the things I will say, we're not monolithic. You look at the brothers here. We all have different crafts. We all have soul, we all have game, and we all can dunk. So I just wanted to put that in there before that something else happened. Michael Jordan was a spectator today, not so much a participator, but I'm so glad to be a part of this conversation. It's so important. I remember 30 years ago when I was Mission Hill Community Centers, folks didn't even use the word Black. Black is in now, Black power. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. I am so glad that people are able to say Black. I think that Biden really needs to develop a office where services are provided to African descendants of slaves, the Black diaspora, and specifically intentionally help Black people deal with the service that they need, because them are the ones that got them in.
Excellent, Ron, and I'm glad that you're back with us. Your voice is real important in this conversation. I want to lift up Eric Jacques in the chat, who reminded us of Doc Rivers' quote. So I'm going to paraphrase, which is essentially, we love this country. It's time for this country, America, to love us back. I thought Doc Rivers was right on point when he made that comment. I want to jump in and really go for a free-for-all just for about 5 or 10 minutes before we turn it back over to Colette. So I'm going to go to the Q&A and ask folks, if you want, just chime in and jump in. What are the plans or projects that are in place to extend your experience and resources to young Black men, youth in the community to continue this work? This is that next gen fourth quarter work. What are you doing? What are we doing to carry on this work that you've really laid the foundation in this space? And just jump on in, whoever wants to add to that.
Well, one of the things I will say in my work with Dunk the Vote, we expanded nationally to 12 different cities throughout the Commonwealth, using, of course, bringing our ground game to the social media space. Unfortunately, I've been having problems today, but we partnered with Boston Praise Radio and TV, Boston Black News, as Colette had so eloquently put it. And we hired Black men. We hired them. And by hiring them, we were able to service them, because we found out that not only COVID discovered underlying conditions for our community, but for the staff I hired. Folks have high blood pressure, they have heart disease, including me, and so many different other things. So I think that's important that we train our Black men, hire them, and so they won't be considered invisible.
Mike, if I can just say something quick, language matters. Our words and terminology matters. If we keep allowing folks to say our communities are at risk, underserved, our kids are this, our kids are that, and we don't uplift and remind us that it's like we say at the base, urban talent is American talent, Black talent is American talent, and we have to uplift our communities and see Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan is a hub of talent and a hub of a pipeline, And we just got to make sure, again, that our messaging and our language and how we describe and identify our own community should be about what our strengths and positivity are, and get out of this negative approach that others have put on our community. So language matters for all of us.
Excellent. Thank you, Robert. Last one, Mari, and then I want to go to Colette. Go ahead, Mari.
Mike, I would say, I think another thing that I think we should do, and I'm trying to do, is understand that we have leaders here in Boston and stop looking outside of our city for leadership and ideas and goals. Like I mean, you know, you talked about this being the dream team, but I mean, there are all-star teams throughout Boston. And so one of the things that I'm doing, and speaking of leadership, is, you know, Glenn Lloyd has created a model of co-op ship. You know, I made that word up, co-op ship. So y'all could credit me on this one. And so Glenn, you know, many of us live in condos and we pay a condo fee, right? And so Glenn has essentially created a condo group to buy property in New Hampshire. And so based on that model, I'm creating a condo group to buy property in Vermont. And so this idea of our 40 acres in a mule, sometimes we'll wait for them to give it to us, and sometimes we got to go buy it. And I can't buy my 40 acres by myself, but I could do it with 8 other people. And I think Glenn has created examples of what it means to create a co-op group, to buy large swaths of land, to farm, to build hotels and hospitality, to build our own second homes. You know, and I think that's one of the things that, you know, I think that I'm doing is listening to folks with wisdom here in town, and try to execute on solid wisdom moving forward.
So Chuck Daly, AKA Colette Phillips, has given us just a few more seconds to answer a question in the chat. So I'm gonna go to Thaddeus and her, but I want you, and you can pivot on this if you want, but I want to give you the question, the last question that's in the chat. Steve says, I'm interested in your thoughts on branding Black. I believe that most companies are branding Black so that they don't get that backlash. You've talked about moments versus movements, but I would also add consistency. How can we hold companies and businesses accountable so the idea of branding Black isn't just for branding, but a consistency towards the movement? I want to go to Herb and then Thaddeus to close that out.
That's an excellent point. I think one of the things we need to do is we got to keep our eyes open and pay attention. We're such a forgiving people. So we sort of move on, you know, people will sort of masquerade diversity or blending Black around their companies, and then they don't really perform. And at the end, we just move on. I think what I will say is we need to keep our eyes open, stay on top of these organizations and these companies, make sure they are accountable. If they're not, we gotta bring it to them. So we can allow them to masquerade us and then sort of use us, and then with their own marketing, and they're not doing the right thing. And I'm paying attention to this company as we speak. There's a lot of companies. I know they make all those things. They want to bring board directors who are Blacks and all those kind of things. I haven't seen some of them. And I know BECMA and other organizations are working to make sure we keep this organization accountable.
But Thea Carter, Thaddeus, who's a friend of mine, always reminds me, she says, Michael, what gets measured or analyzed gets done. Thaddeus, what do you think about the answer to that question?
I think that's everything. You know, Bethia is a friend to everybody, and you know, her organization is a leading organization when we think about philanthropic adventures around Blackness. And so I think when I look at anything, if I can't measure the impact, then I can't really talk about it. So if I'm on a diet, I can't go around and tell somebody I lost weight, but I can't tell them how much weight I lost. Right? So if we keeping it real, and I also believe that if we're talking about branding Black, if it ain't Black leadership, then we ain't branding anything Black. I think the problem is we too easily brand stuff. Oh, that's for Black folks because it says Black Lives Matter. You know, it's a tagline. You know what I mean? But they don't have any Black leadership. They don't have any Black people on their board, or they got Black people on their board that just became Black, right? And so, you know, y'all up here that know what I'm talking about, right? And so, you know, for me, that's a challenge. But I also want to talk for a moment about what it is that I'm trying to do and what I'm proud of, because I was able to work with a group of folks to bring Becoming a Man, that's led by Sean Brown here in Boston Public Schools, that's really working on social and emotional wellness for young folks, and also men that are actually doing 18 months of work in their own clinical setting. So we're not having young men, or we're not having adults work out their issues with our young men, right? And so for me, we're starting to look at that. And one of the things that I'm most love about it is there's 6 core aspects of what they're doing. And what they're teaching our young men is respect of womanhood, visionary goal setting, positive anger expression, accountability, and self-determination. And so I think those core things of teaching our young men at the early age, and for me, that's at the age of 6th grade, 5th grade, really from day one, to be able to drive that home and to really be able to think about it. But again, I'm gonna go back to we can't be branding stuff black if we don't have black leadership in there and we don't have black board members that have been authentically black for a minute. You know, there's a lot of authentically black folks today, right? You know, and so if last week you weren't black, you can't be black today. You know, and so but we need to call that out. We need to hold folks accountable, and we need to really sort of move that through. And I'm gonna give you this last example. 'Cause I know Colette's gonna do it. I was just on the board. The board was really uncomfortable with me because I'm authentically who I am. And you guys know me. You know how I'm going to say what it is. So I ended up leaving the board. 2 days later, they had another black person there because they were afraid of cancel culture, of being called out about not having any black folks on the board. You know what I mean? And so for me, that's the challenges that we also got to start to think about, right? So I'm still dealing with, should I call them out? Should I not call them out? Right? So we've got to figure out how do we actually hold groups and others accountable for not just branding black, but really moving forward the black agenda, and that we move it forward in a way that actually represents and holds us, as a group together accountable. So we should leave this panel with the 7 of us not figuring out how we gonna work together on something for our black folks down the road. And we can all still connect, but I want to make sure that we come back together and be able to say a year from now that as a collective whole, we did something that was impactful as a unit and as an example of what blackness looks like and what black men can do together. We are powerful, powerful folks.
So there are so many gems in what everyone just got. Thank you for that, Thaddeus. I want to hashtag authentic black. And if you're not in the black community and you're not a black activist, you may not know what that means, right? So, and Robert, thank you for that. You added, keep it real today. This is about being our authentic self. Hashtag authentic black, Ron. So I want to say thank you to everyone on the call. I do want to, just a quick reference, Thaddeus, you made me think about something that when some of these predominant organizations, whether it's a board seat, whether it's a college that's looking for diverse students, they find people that they figure can most easily fit in and be least disruptive. And I think we're past that. This is a part of that moment that leads to a movement, Herb, that you were talking about, that we really need to push the agenda that people sitting at the table have a voice, an authentic voice at that table. And we demand that whenever and wherever we can. Collette, you got the dream team, Chuck Daly. And I think you won an Olympic gold medal with this group. So I'm just honored and humbled to be here with them.
I think you're so right. And I want to thank all of you, brothers who can dunk. This has been an inspiring, uplifting, and just inspirational conversation and discussion. And I can't tell you, I'm sure some of you have seen the comments in the chat. And I couldn't think of 7 Black men more appropriate to have this conversation than each of you. You were chosen strategically, and I want to thank you for that. I also want to say to everyone there that if you are a small business or a nonprofit, we just launched the GK Market, which is free and open to everyone and anyone, particularly with the holidays coming up. I know what it's like as for small businesses and the challenges they have had. Our goal is to lift up, elevate, amplify these small businesses and give them a platform, even if they don't have a website, to move their goods and services. And we have partnered with NBC Boston 10, NBC Boston Sports, NECN, and Telemundo, who are going to carry and focus and highlight these small businesses. And I encourage everyone to go to our new website. And we also, as you guys were talking about finding opportunities for boards, that was one of the reasons that I started doing the GK 100 and the GK 50, to really expose, stop giving people the excuse, we can't find any of them. Well, where are you looking? They are right here. And you will hear more about it, but when you go on the site, you will also see the GK ExecuSearch, which is about helping companies find Black and brown talent, and not saying we can't find them. I have them. Come find them. We'll give them to you for your boards of directors, for your C-suites, and for everything in between. So I want to thank all of you for constantly lifting all of us up, for the work that you do. And I cannot say how very much I have been proud of all of my Black brothers on this panel. And I just want to say to everyone who was able to join us this afternoon, to please know that you can support each of these men and the work that they're doing. And if you truly want to be an ally, that's not enough. You need to become an accomplice. And don't just be non-racist, you need to become anti-racist. So on those two notes, I will leave you and say happy Thanksgiving. And even though we have gone through this storm, know that we all have a lot to be grateful for. So thank you all.